Welcome to the Small Business Sessions podcast from Enterprise Nation's Business Connected training program and our partners Vodafone Business, Constant Contact, Dropbox and JPMorgan. In this week's episode, I'm joined by Jade, a content creator and marketer who helps entrepreneurs to grow their online presence, multiply their income streams and create successful and profitable businesses. Jade began her career in marketing and sponsorship, but quit corporate life in 2021. She used her 8 years of experience to turn her YouTube channel into a six-figure business shortly after uploading her first video. In the show, we discuss switching from a side hustle to a full-time business, how to grow a successful YouTube channel, and Jade's brilliant tips for making the most of social media to power your entrepreneurial success. Let's get started. So Jade, thank you so much for joining us on the Small Business Sessions.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here.
Looking forward to our chat. So take me back to the beginning. Always the first question in these things. How did you end up doing what you do? Maybe first you want to say what you do, and then how it all started for you.
Yeah. So I am a content creator. I'm a marketing consultant. I'm one of those people. I've become like a multi-hyphenate,
Right.
where it's hard to just describe me in just one word. But basically, I create content and have services which help my fellow creators and entrepreneurs bridge the gap between creating the content they love and earning an income from it. How I actually got started. So I actually worked in marketing for a while, for about 8 years actually. And around 2020, the end of 2020, everyone had a little bit more free time on their hands. Yep. Not many social things going on around that time. I did realize there was a gap online when it came to people talking about social media marketing, all the things that I'd been working in for the past 8 years. There were some great creators in that space, but I rarely found creators who looked like me, being a Black woman, who sounded like me coming from the UK. Like that, I very rarely saw anyone where I felt like I could identify with them on those levels. I also knew that I had value to share from my experience as well. And back then, there weren't actually many people talking about marketing online, which probably sounds wild when you think about it now.
There's a lot of them now.
There's a lot now. But back then, it was like not really a thing that people done. So I just thought, you know what? I've got a little bit of spare time. I'm going to create my own YouTube channel. I'm going to share what I've learned. And it very quickly turned into a business. Within a few months, even when my business or my audience was still very small, I very quickly put my marketing hat on and was like, wait a minute, there's some legs here. Started to create products, services, memberships, started to work with brands, very much snowballed from there. And then within, I think it was about 7 months, I handed in my notice to my full-time job and just dove right in. And I haven't really looked back since.
Wow. Just before we get to you going full-time, I read on your LinkedIn profile that you did run 4 side hustles at one point alongside your full-time job.
Yeah.
So what were you doing and how did you manage that? I mean, side hustle is also now a popular thing, but running 4 plus a full-time job, that's quite a lot going on.
What was I doing is such a great question. It's such a what was I doing? Oh gosh. Look, I've always wanted my own business. I've wanted my own business for as long as I can remember. So therefore, I've always been starting businesses, literally since I was like a teenager. Some of them were good, some of them weren't so much. Towards my like mid to late 20s was when I started to have these multiple side hustles whilst I was working full time. So I had 2 e-commerce companies. So I had a swimwear boutique. Then obviously the pandemic happened and no one was buying swimwear. And then I created a bag boutique. So I had both of those. And then I also had like an influencing channel. So myself and my now husband, we had an Instagram. It was quite small. It was under 10,000 followers. And it was all about travel and experiences. Again, this was pre-pandemic when we were having travel and experiences. And that turned into a business because we were working with brands to monetize it as well. And then towards the end of that like wild journey where I had all of these different companies, I also had this YouTube channel, which was then a business after that. So there was one point where I was running these 4 businesses and I was still working my full-time job. It was a lot. I don't know how I was doing it. Once my YouTube channel turned into a bigger business and I really knew straight away that that was the one that I was getting the most fulfillment from, I very quickly turned off the rest of them. The e-commerce boutiques, they were the first to go. E-commerce is an incredibly labor-intensive company to run when it's just you in your flat, surrounded by products, like trying to ship everything out. It was just the first thing to go. And then the influencing channel just kind of hang on for dear life for a while when my poor husband was just trying to do it by himself. And I was like, no.
It's time.
Oh, it's time.
Yeah.
I think it's still live, but yeah, we don't post on it anymore. So yeah, it was a really busy time. Again, just context, the time, what was happening in the world, I didn't have any social commitments at the time.
Yeah.
So, you know, I did have more spare time than I do now. But even with that in mind, I was still waking up at 5, working until 9, working my 9 to 5, then working after that, and then working on the weekends. It was a lot.
The 9 to 5, then the 5 to 9
yes.
and beyond.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, at least, you know, that obviously now, given what you do and work with businesses, I mean, you've had all that experience. So it's like you've tested all different types of businesses. So it's really valuable.
Yeah.
But that point about, like you said, after 7 months, you quit the full-time job, which people that are running side hustles is like the big thing to do. Like, do I go part-time? You know, do I just go day a week? Do I go full in? So why did you decide to completely, that's it, I'm quitting, going full time? And what advice would you give to other side hustlers?
Yeah, such a good question. It wasn't an easy decision. I loved my job, which is something that a lot of people assume that I hated it. But I actually loved it. It was a really fun job and it was very fulfilling. And I'd actually recently been promoted, like things were going well. So I didn't take the decision lightly. I'd basically gotten to the point where I had burnt out because of the ridiculous hours that I was working. I took a couple weeks off just to kind of rest and recoup. And during that time, I did a lot of journaling. I did a lot of financial mapping. There was a lot of spreadsheets going on. And the actual thing that kind of triggered me to make the decision that it wasn't right to go part-time, I had to quit this completely, was when I created a time audit of basically where all my time was going. So I broke down every single thing I did in a week, including my full-time job was on there too, and broke down how many hours that was taking per week. And I very quickly, as you can imagine, saw that the job was taking up the most amount of time, surprisingly. And when I realized that and thought to myself, well, at the end of the day, my goal has always been to work for myself. And I have now gotten to the point where I have this company, which is fulfilling. I love it. It's growing. It's helping people and it's financially stable. And I'm at a point where I got to pick one. It would be wild for me not to go for this one. Yeah. This is what makes the most sense for me. And I do think, and not everyone will be in this situation, but there was a lot of, you know, forward thinking and financial planning which came into it. You know, I didn't want to put myself in a situation where I couldn't afford my mortgage anymore and all that kind of stuff, or even that my quality of life would be massively impacted. So I did make sure that I had a emergency fund. I made sure that I had a good runway so I could clearly see, okay, for the next 6 months, I actually know that I've got guaranteed income every single month. So I did all of that as well. And then I also thought about like, okay, absolute worst case scenario here. Like, let's imagine we get to the point where this entire business has shut down and I cannot make 1 penny from it. What am I going to do? Like, what situation can I be in? And I was fortunate in that, you know, worst case scenario, my mum lives 10 minutes down the road from me, you know?
Yeah.
I have worked for 8 years. I have 8 years experience. I could go back into a marketing role and be okay. So you've got to think about those things as well. Even though sometimes you might want to just bury your head in the sand and be like, I don't want to think about it. It's too negative. It's not negative. It's just smart.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just made me feel so much better. Even now when things have grown and I feel so comfortable, even now I think to myself, I have such a safety blanket here.
Yeah.
The worst case scenario isn't that bad for me, you know?
Yeah. That is great advice to plan it. I mean, that is so key. Like, can I afford it? You know, have I got money? And having money, you know, like you said, a runway. So if you earn nothing for 3 months, you've got money. That's brilliant. But you said your YouTube channel like took off, you know, before you'd even gone full time. So what did you do? What did you do to get those like followers? And what advice have you got on, you know, growing a YouTube channel?
Well, first of all, YouTube is just an incredible platform. If that's the one that you're going to pick, it is a high reward platform, but it's also high effort. There is so much effort what goes into it. The amount of time that goes into creating long form content. There's shorts on YouTube as well. But really, if you want a successful, healthy channel, you want to be creating both formats. So you want to be creating your longer videos, your landscapes, in addition to your short form content. And that commitment can't be taken lightly. You do want to be posting quite regularly, and that means that you're going to be spending a lot of time creating content. My strategy, or at least the one that started to really work for me, it was to basically share 2 long form videos per week. I started my channel when there was no shorts. And whenever I say that, I think, my gosh, am I old now? Like, what's happened?
Yeah.
In my day, there
Quickly,
was no short form content. But yeah, there wasn't. So I just started with 2 long form videos per week. And the thing what really helped me see the spike in my views fairly early on, it was about 4 months into my journey, was when I started to change my approach to the content I was creating and how I was finding topics. At the start, I was doing what a lot of people do. And I was like, what do I want to film today? And I would just think of a topic related to marketing or business, and I would film a video on that. Sometimes I might check to see if someone else has done a video similar. And if I see that they have and it's had a lot of views, I'll think, great. If they got a lot of views, then I'm going to get a lot of views. And that's just obviously not how things work. So I started to change my approach and I started to get a lot more topical. And I started to do more research into what people were interested in right now, rather than what do I want to talk about. So it was a flip. It was an audience first approach. It was like, what do you need from me? And that was when I started to realize that at the time, people were so confused about Instagram's algorithm. I mean, people still are.
Yeah, aren't we all? Yeah.
But back then, it was just this enigma, like no one knew anything about it. So I created a video about Instagram's algorithm, and that was my first video, which really took off for me. From there, I started to put a few tactics in place. Like I would always pitch another video at the end of my video. So if you watch any of my videos now, when you get to the end, I'll say, if you enjoyed this video, I recommend watching this video. And then I'll pitch one that I know that you'll be interested in. And once you start putting things like that in place and you continue to pick topics which are topical, you'll notice things will snowball. Once you get that one video that starts to get attention, now someone already knows what to watch next. And then they're going to watch another one after that. They end up spending 5 hours watching your content. They subscribe to you afterwards. That bond is there because they've literally spent hours watching you. That is unheard of on any other social media platform. Maximum, they're going to watch you for about 30 seconds. So the bond's there. They remember you. They trust you now. So, and that's what I mean with YouTube when I say it's high effort, but the reward is super high, because once you hit that and you start to snowball, it really just kind of take off from there.
Yeah, that's such good advice. For those of you watching on YouTube, watch another one after this. But what about like comments? Because sometimes, you know, the perception of YouTube is it can be, well, a lot of most comment sections, you know, like particularly places like Twitter, X and others, the comment section is not the greatest of places because it can, you know, trolling and nasty comments, but you've kind of got a community going on in there with positivity. So if you kind of nurtured that in the like you, because a lot of people might ignore the comments, but that's quite important as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very important. And YouTube do have a few features which allows you to put some settings in place so that like comments with certain words will never be shown, that kind of thing. So they've got a good amount of safety features there. However, social media is social media, and no matter how many social safety features that you're going to have access to, if someone wants to leave a rude, hateful comment, they will find a way to do so, right? With my audience, and I think with a lot of people's audiences, what often happens is when you are consistently creating content that's of value to them and you're really committed to just helping them in some way, whether that's through educational content or like entertaining content or it's inspirational, doesn't matter what the value is. If you're consistently delivering that, you will build a community of people who will respect you and will support you. I never forget the first time I got someone defending me in like a comment. So it was really early on and I had a few like rude comments here and there. And then I had a comment and someone responded to the comment like defending me. And I was like, wow,
this is the community.
This is the community.
Yeah.
Like what an incredible thing that someone's taken their time out to defend someone else through just purely because of the content that they've created, you know? So it is one of those things that is completely unavoidable, but the community you get is just so rich and rewarding that when you focus on that enough, it really is a lot easier than you think to ignore the hateful side of it.
Big thanks to Vodafone Business for sponsoring this podcast. VHub from Vodafone Business has supported over 1 million SMEs, providing expert advice on a range of topics that matter to small business owners everywhere. Access VHub for a free one-to-one consultation with an expert advisor and get support tailored to your business. Book your free consultation with a VHub advisor today. Find more details at vodafone.co.uk/VHub. You know, you are a business, you need to make money. And one of the things you do, you've got a membership model so people can join and get content and stuff. And again, that's a model that a lot of people are interested in, recurring subscription models, because it's like income that just keeps coming in.
Yeah.
So do you want to say how you've set that up and what advice you'd have for like membership model.
Yeah. And I mean, I haven't always had a membership. I had a membership, then I had courses, then I had coaching programs, then I had one-to-one coaching, and then I went back to a membership. And there was a reason why I went back to my membership. First of all, so my membership is called the Creator Project, and it's basically for content creators and entrepreneurs, anyone who uses social media for a purpose beyond their personal use. So if you're trying to grow a community or earn an income, you're going to find resources that will help you on that membership. And I set it up using a company called Uscreen, which basically allows me to have this online membership in addition to a mobile app. And I guess for anyone who's looking to do something similar, the reason why I went back to the membership model was, for me, it just suited my business type more. I wanted a model which, first of all, didn't require a huge amount of commitment in terms of an investment. And I know people have different perspectives on that. I know my audience quite well now, having sold to them for a few years. And I know how, a creator's income can fluctuate quite a bit. So I wanted to create something where people could enter at different price points and also where people can use it when they needed it, right? I wanted it to match their journey, basically. And also the reoccurring income. It makes it so much easier for me to see and financially forecast my business when I have a membership versus when I don't. So personally, it just really, really worked for me. And one of the main things I did when I was deciding to restart my membership was to have an audience first approach and to ask my audience what they wanted it to look like. So I created a survey. It works great if you've already got an audience. I had an email list of like 25,000-ish people who I sent it out to, but you can also use ads to get it out there as well and just make sure your targeting is on point. I created a survey where I was asking my audience, like, hey, I'm working on something. It's for you guys. Can you help me with it? And all of the questions were very specific. I didn't have anything that was like an open-ended question where it'd be so difficult for me to go through that data and figure out what the actual answer was. It was all mostly just like having my audience rank different elements of the membership and different features based on what they'd find the most useful. And that meant that I can look at the data and very clearly see what the membership should include and what it shouldn't include. And you'll be so surprised what those results are. Like, I really thought one thing I was going to bring in was like discounts on partner brands. And I thought that would be like, everyone would want that. And that was so far on the bottom that I was like, I don't even think you guys want it at all. Like, and I never would have known that otherwise. And it also helps you with your messaging. Like, obviously they ranked the different features. Most of those features are still included, but I know which features to talk about. What do I lead with? Like, I know what they deem as the most valuable. If I'm going to spend time updating anything, I know what to update first. So that's like my biggest piece of advice for anyone who wants to create their own membership.
That's great. I mean, like you say, audience first, it all comes back to that. So how does it work with the benefits then? Because obviously do you create all of it at once and then you sort of feed it through each month, or are you continually having to work on it each month?
Yeah. So I'm continually working on it. I created so for example, if we talk about the mini courses, masterclasses, that kind of stuff, I created majority of it up front. So the core content. So I made sure that there was going to be a mini course and resources on all the key social media platforms, whether it's by me or by an external professional. So that was all there before I launched. And then I launched with like a founder price that everyone was like grandfathered into. So people were able to join at a rate that is significantly lower that they'll ever be able to pay again in the future. And there is an understanding there where it's like the price is lower, but that's because you've got the basic level of content at the moment and it's going to increase over time. So once it had launched, which was February this year, was when I kind of rebranded and relaunched it. I then started to add new materials, courses, live events, stuff like that every month at quite a rapid rate. So we're now at the stage where the library is pretty jam-packed. Everything's kind of been tested and tweaked, but it does take about 6 months for you to get to that point. And that's usually when your price will increase to reflect the value of the membership as it is right now. And it's usually where you really get in your swing of things. You might hire someone to help you run it a little bit more. It's a good place to be in, but I would be lying to you if I didn't say those 6 months. The 6 months before you launch and then the 6 months after, that year is tough.
Yeah.
So you're creating a lot of content.
Yeah. But once you've done that, like you say, that's it. You're there, aren't you? And then you've got the recurring. Yeah.
Becomes so much easier. Like your day-to-day task for me is just like being in the community. Yeah. Because everything else is working. I'm just in the community, like answering questions and just hanging out with other creators. So it's really nice once you get to that point.
Just down to some sort of your general advice on the sort of the subjects you cover. So what about social media? You know, we obviously it's been around forever now. Everybody uses it pretty much. But what is what is it you say to people about how they can maximize social media for whatever it is they're trying to achieve?
Yeah. I think whenever I talk to someone who maybe doesn't use social media to the best of its potential just yet, and also to someone who isn't quite convinced that it's the right marketing channel for them, I always like to just get them to think about, if we could go back in time and say to someone who owned a business or who was in a marketing team, if we can go back 20 years and just say, in the future, you'll be able to potentially reach billions of people for free. Would you take that opportunity? They would lose their minds. They'd be like, what? Yeah. How have we arrived in this place? They'll be like, do you mean TV ads? TV ads will be free? No.
Yeah.
Social media, it's free for now. I do think we're moving to a place where it's not going to be free forever.
Yeah.
It's free for now, and the opportunity is there. You will find, you will go through phases with your social media journey where it's going to feel like nothing's working and this is really difficult. Is it worth your time and effort? And I just want you to remind yourself that this is technically a free platform. What you're paying is your time and effort, but that's it. There has to be some kind of balance there. Like, yes, it's going to take a lot of time and effort, but you're not paying to be on it. So that's just kind of how it balances out. For anyone who is struggling with it as well, and it all goes back to what I've basically been saying this whole session, and what I always say is you've got to look at your audience. Almost every business owner I've ever worked with who is trying to sell a product or service on social media is approaching it from the perspective of them trying to sell something rather than what does their audience want to consume. No one goes on social media to be sold to. No one wants that. It happens because someone's very good at marketing and has sold to them in a way that makes them want to go and purchase a product. It doesn't happen because someone said, hey, look at this amazing vase that I have. Do you want to buy it? Just not how things work anymore, you know? So you've got to think, okay, instead of creating content, which is just going to help me sell, how do I create content that will help me connect? How do I create content that will help my audience trust me? What can I teach or share? Or how can I entertain my audience in some way so they go to my content as a way to get something from me rather than purely me trying to get something from them? You know, the sales will come after. It's not like a bottom of the funnel channel that I think people still think it is. It's not. You're not going to get your conversions there. It's more middle, if anything.
Yeah.
So it's important that we see it for that, you know?
Yeah. Brilliant. And what about like influencers? You know, we hear a lot about influencers, and in a way, because there are so many, and platforms like TikTok in particular, people think it's easy. Oh, I just join TikTok, I start selling on TikTok Shop, and I'll be earning 2 million by the end of the year. So what is your tips on becoming an influencer, essentially using just social media to make cash?
Yeah. So funny, because you're right. People go into it thinking that. And the reason why is because some people have done that. They've just started a TikTok account and within the year they're on billboards and multi-millionaires. It's absolutely incredible. I think there's a few things I would say here. I think the first thing is pick your channel wisely. I think a lot of people are kind of attracted to the allure of TikTok and they're like, oh, it's easy on TikTok. I can blow up on TikTok. It has its downsides. Yes, you might be able to reach more people, but your connection isn't going to be as strong on TikTok as it would be elsewhere. The most important thing is to pick the channel that you actually like to create content on. Biggest mistake that people make is that they're just like, it'd be like me saying, okay, I'm going to focus on TikTok, knowing full blown well that I like to talk for 15 minutes. So what am I doing on TikTok? My main channel should be YouTube.
Yeah.
What happens is you pick the channel that you think gives you the opportunity, but not the one that you like. And then you quit because you don't enjoy creating content from it. And one of the biggest reasons why you're not going to get to where you want to be is because you're going to quit and give up. If you stick with something and continuously improve your craft, you will get to where you want to be. Therefore, you've got to make it easier for yourself and actually pick a channel that you enjoy, you know? And then I guess the other thing I would say, because there's so much I could say, but the other thing, and everyone's going to hate me for saying this, but consistency, and just bear with me. Consistency is important, but not just for the reason that you think it is. I think a lot of people hear about consistency and they're like, I've got to be consistent because it's the only way that, you know, the algorithms will like me and therefore share my content. And that is true. Consistency is good for that reason, but it's also important for your audience. Your audience will forget you if you do not share content for about 6 months. If you share loads of content every day on TikTok and then you go quiet for about 6 months and then you pop back up on their home feed again, they might just unfollow you because they're like, I don't remember who this person is. They are consuming content from hundreds of creators on a daily basis. If you want to remain front of mind, especially on a platform like TikTok or Instagram, you do have to create content on a regular basis. And then there's YouTube, where it's like the consistency is important because people bake your posting schedule into their days. I've had people message me before, and this is so fair from them, where I've posted on a Thursday rather than a Wednesday, and they're like, excuse me, I normally watch this before work. What's going on?
Right.
And I get it. There are creators who I follow where I'm like, oh yes, it's Wednesday. I get to watch their vlog.
Yeah.
It's part of my week. It's like a TV program, YouTube. So if you want to keep that bond there, because what an incredible bond to have with someone, you do have to stick to some kind of posting schedule.
Yeah.
So consistency, it's for two reasons. It's not just to please the algorithm gods, it's also to please your audience too.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And, this is series 7 of this podcast. We've always done it on a Wednesday. We always release the episode on a Wednesday. That also is because the Enterprise Nation newsletter goes out on a Wednesday, so it can be in there. But yeah, we've always been Wednesday, and I know we've got people who are, it's my Wednesday podcast,
Oh my God, with podcasts, I think it's even stronger.
Yeah.
Like with my favorite podcasts, if they didn't post when I thought I would lose it, I'd be like, you have disrupted my whole week.
That's it.
I don't know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
Like I do like a longer walk on certain days because I know I'm going to have that podcast, And when you're the creator, it's easy to forget that.
Yeah.
And also to convince yourself that people don't plan their week around your content. They do. Even if you've got a couple hundred people in your audience, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, that is such a good point about consistency, actually. That is brilliant. And again, back to influencers and businesses as well. Brand partnerships is a big part of that. So, selling stuff for other brands or whatever. But so what is your advice on sort of building brand partnerships that you can make money from?
So from an influencer's or creator's perspective, I always advise people to consider what the value offering is. So this is like the main concept that I speak about in general with social media. There's always, or just life, there's always an exchange of value going on. Do you know what I mean? Like there's an exchange of value right now. Like I'm helping you guys create content. I'm also going to get some awareness, and hopefully new people will listen to this who I've never, spoken to before. So there's always a value exchange. So when it comes to brand partnerships, from the influencer's perspective, you have to think about the value that you're giving the brand and not just the value that the brand's going to give you. A lot of the time, especially when you're new to the industry, you think, okay, well, I want to get paid and I want some free stuff. And that's just the value that you're getting. Why should the brand work with you? How are you going to help them? Are you a type of creator who has a big audience, or your content just reaches a lot of people? Because that's just as valuable, if not more valuable. Great. You're going to help this brand with their awareness. You're going to help them get their name out there. Like, that's amazing. Maybe you're a smaller creator, but your audience are highly targeted. So you're like, yeah, I'm a fitness creator, but I specialize in like macro tracking and blah, blah, blah. That is a highly targeted audience. So yeah, you might have a few thousand people in your audience, but the right brand is going to love that, because you can say to them, look, I have a couple thousand people in my audience, but they're highly targeted and they're exact people who would benefit from your product or service. So it's about spending some time figuring out what type of creator you are and what the value is that you can offer them. Another big one, and this is kind of my one, is like a credible exchange kind of thing. So if I'm going to work with a brand, then I can sometimes help with their credibility if they're new, because I have credibility within this space now because I've been teaching for so long in this space, that if a new product or service comes to me and their product or service is great and it really works, I can really help them be seen as a credible product or service amongst an audience who might not actually take them seriously unless someone recommends them, you know?
Yeah.
So there's so many different types of value that you can offer a brand. It's just about figuring out what yours is and effectively communicating that to brands.
Well, Jade, I feel we could go on for hours more.
We could.
But we can't. It'd become a 3-hour YouTube video, and that's a bit too long. But thank you so much for all the advice you've shared. And big thanks for joining us on the Small Business Sessions.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been watching Enterprise Nation's Small Business Sessions podcast, powered by Business Connected and our partners Vodafone Business, Constant Contact, Dropbox and JPMorgan. If you've been inspired during this episode, head to enterprisenation.com/business connected to register for webinars and to access free business training. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.